Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We do have Councillor Taylor that is joining us online this evening virtually as per our procedural bylaw. I will call this meeting to order. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we acknowledge the town of Edson is located on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral lands of the Niqawak, Saulteaux, Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and the Pitimisawak Métis Nations. We honor the knowledge of this land, the elders and youth which gather here, and our ancestors who have gathered here for centuries. Can I get a motion that the agenda for the January 21st, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? And we will take a motion from Councillor Chenard.
I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. All those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the January 14th, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. We have no public hearings, no presentations and delegations, no readings of bylaws. Our first item is the draft council allocation of electronic tablets policy presented by Amanda Veerboom, our legislative officer. Amanda, are you online?
Thank you. I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
I'm just going to get my screen share going. Okay. So today we are here to present the draft council allocation of electronic tablets policy. Following the 2021 election, council had requested administration to develop a policy that will guide the allocation of tablets. Draft policy LD8C, council allocation of electronic tablets, standardizes the allocation of tablets for members of council, as well as capturing upgrade options, approved users, maintenance, and technical support of the tablets. At the November 12th Committee of the Whole meeting, administration presented the draft policy for feedback. The feedback has been incorporated into the draft presented today. This feedback included adjusting the policy from iPad specific to electronic tablet, which allows the policy to be flexible for future use, adding a provision for responsibility of costs for repair or replacement of tablets when damaged. For this one, administration is recommending the town will cover the cost for one repair or replacement per term. Further needs will be assessed on a case-by-case basis by the town's IT department. And the other feedback was to adjust the factory reset of tablets upon conclusion of the term to removal of town applications and documentation. The town's current agenda systems tablet application, iCompass Agenda Notes, is only available in the iOS App Store, restricting tablet use to Apple iPads at this time. Additional options may become available if an Android-compatible application is developed or the town's agenda platform is changed. Within 2 weeks of entering term, council will be provided with a basic Wi-Fi only tablet of the current generation and a case with an integrated keyboard. These options are provided at no cost to council. If a member of council wishes to upgrade their tablet with cellular capabilities or to have a different model, this can be accommodated. However, the upfront and ongoing costs associated this would be with the responsibility of the member of council. Tablets will remain solely in the possession and control of council or the town's IT department, and all data contained within the tablet are the property of the town. Tablets are to be used for business purposes only and must be connected to a secured network and locked when not in use. Use for remote meeting attendance is permitted in alignment with the current meeting procedures bylaw. Upon serving a minimum of 2 years, council may keep the tablet provided to them at the end of the term, after the IT department removes all town applications and documentation. If council serves less than 2 years of the term, the tablet must be returned to the town of Edson within 1 week of leaving office. The town of Edson IT department or service provider approved by the IT department will be responsible for all technical support. It is council's responsibility to immediately report a lost, stolen, or damaged tablet to the town's IT department. Changes to the tablet's configuration and content must be completed through these channels. Council must return the tablet to the IT department if damaged and notify them immediately if the device is lost or stolen. As previously mentioned, currently the town is limited to iPad use. So the current cost projection for 7 iPads with cases and keyboards is approximately $4,700. Each iPad costs $525, including tax, and the case with keyboard is $147, including tax. In closing, administration recommends that council approve the council allocation of electronic tablet policy as presented. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Veerboom, for your presentation. Council will open the floor to any questions for Ms. Veerboom. We did discuss this at length, committee a few weeks ago. Councilor Taylor, you have any questions? All right, with that, I will take a motion, please. Go ahead, Councilor Chenard.
I'll make the motion. The council approve the allocation of electronic tablet policy LD 8C as presented.
Thank you. Open the floor to debate. Any debate on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Veerboom.
Thank you.
Next up, fun one, the capital project funding request for sanitary B1A6 presented by Mr. Clayton Kittlitz, General Manager of Infrastructure and Operations, and Jeff Abinson of McElhaney. And I believe we have Jeff on the line. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just gonna load up my presentation here, try to.
Just want to make sure, Jeff, you can hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Thank you.
There it is. Okay, again, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So ideally, an ask of this nature would, we'd like to probably save for some time, maybe for spring budget adjustments, not so soon after Council has already approved the capital budgets. However, we're in a bit of a situation as Council's aware. Tendering projects of this complexity and nature are important to do as soon as possible in the year. And waiting till spring budget adjustment obviously delays that. We're running into some troubles because the design work that's being completed for this project has found some complexities that we want to share with Council tonight that causes for pause and for reconsideration in how we're going to complete this project. So I'll do the presenting, and Jeff will be here to help with any technical questions that Council may have as we contemplate this funding request. So I'm going to focus specifically on the B1 portion of this. Obviously, this project was 2 different areas, A6 being on 48th Street between, I think it's 5th Ave and 2nd Ave, if memory serves. This is the B1 portion. It basically runs on 14th Ave, down 54th, across 13th Ave, again down 54th, turning around on 12th Ave to 52nd Street and back westward, it's kind of southwest down 10th Ave, ending at where the 10th Ave sanitary project ended last fall. What's being proposed, along with deferral of the A6, is changing the single trench sanitary sewer upgrade in this area to a full rehabilitation. Very similar to what we did on 18th Ave last summer. Full rehab means a curb to curb, back a sidewalk to curb, or in this case on the 14th Ave, there's only sidewalk on one side, so it'll go from back of sidewalk, a replacement of all town infrastructure, water, mains, valves, and hydrants if needed, wastewater mains and manholes, storm mains, manholes, and catch basins, and again, the sidewalk, curb, and gutter would all be replaced, along with obviously the base and the road surface in these areas. Our records are indicating that these subdivisions and the infrastructure are about 45 to 50 years old. Certainly not the oldest subdivisions and infrastructure we have in town, but given that we're going to be in here to upgrade the sanitary anyway, certainly there's justification to go ahead and do that full rehab. Also worth noting is our records indicate that the water lines in these areas are asbestos cement, so that's certainly a material that we're trying to replace over time as soon as possible with newer materials. So in the RFD, it sort of goes over some of the reasons as to why our consultants are recommending this. As they started to do the design work, they found that, for one, specifically down 52nd Street and 54th Street, that the water line and the sanitary line are very close together. Obviously, this project involves upsizing the sanitary line. That causes concern for potential conflict with that existing water line. We also experienced from last year's construction on 54th Street and 10th Ave that some of our water infrastructure needed some work. It was in quite disrepair. I can't remember exactly, maybe Jeff remembers, but I think we have replaced at least 2 of our water valves that ended up being malfunctioning and had to be replaced during the project, which caused extra delays and costs. Council may recall there was also a water line that was stubbed at 54th Street intersection on 10th Ave that we had to reconnect. So that was something we found. So there's some concerns there that once we open this up, we're going to have a bunch of extra repairs on some other infrastructure that we didn't anticipate. Also, council recall the storm sewer situation with some of the construction practices that we found that have to be repaired. There's concerns that we may find some more of those. And all these things lead to change orders, which end up costing us more in the long run. And the other big concern is they can lead to scheduling overruns. This is a complex project as it is. It's in a residential neighborhood. Finding a way anything we can do to minimize then the scheduling extensions that will cause for a longer construction season for these residents is certainly in our best interest. So in terms of the cost implications, so council will recall that the sanitary B1 and A6 project was estimated to be $3.4 million, and that was the approved budget for 2025. This was for the trench, the single trench replacement of the sanitary only. If we looked at just B1 by itself as a trench replacement, it'd be estimated about $2.9 million. But the full rehab, which is what we're recommending here tonight, and deferral of A6 would be an estimated of just under $6.8 million to complete that. So substantially more than the original budget. As the RFD does draw attention to, we have applied for a grant to go towards this. I think it's $947,000 and change. If we're successful in getting that, obviously we use that to offset some of the draws from reserves that we're contemplating for supporting this project. So with that, the recommendations in front of council this evening are the council authorizes deferral of the sanitary A6 project for consideration within 2026 capital budget and redirect the $3.4 million allocated for this joint sanitary B1 and A6 project to solely the sanitary B1 project. And secondly, the council authorizes the transfer of $2.5 million from the revenue sharing agreement reserve to fund the B1 project as a full rehab. Happy to try to answer any questions that council may have, and I'll defer to Jeff if it's something that I can't answer.
Thank you, Mr. Kitlitz, for that presentation. Council, we will open the floor to questions. Go ahead, Councillor Chenard.
Through the mayor to Mr. Kitlitz. I like your recommendation. So that area is probably 40 to 50 years old. So the curbs and the sidewalks and stuff are probably getting to the stage, if we don't change them now, we'd have to change them within the next 5 years, something like that. Would that be a comment? Because I agree with, if you're gonna do it, let's do it all.
Yeah.
And then it's all new, but we have to weigh the cost of it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hart, certainly I can't say for sure the exact condition of those sidewalks and whether they could last us another 10, 15 more years. In some cases, maybe they can. We haven't really looked at that assessment. But we're in there, we're doing it. There is an argument to be made that we might as well do it all at once and get it all shipped up, and then we're not going back in there again, whether it's 5 years or even 10 years later. So, but I don't know the specific condition of all those sidewalks, curb and gutter.
So something to add is the sidewalk in that area was 1 meter wide, so we're kind of bringing it to a standard 1.2 meter. And even when we were working over the construction season, kind of noticed people having to press pretty close together, walking on the narrow sidewalk. So it's nice to bring that to a more standard width.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff, for that.
Council, any further questions? Councillor Taylor, do you have any questions? All right. Councillor Chachka.
Through the mayor to Mr. Kitlitz, if council approves this project as recommended, Do you know what kind of timeline there would be to execute that? It looks like it would be a little bit challenging, just with all the corners and the extensive everything that has to be replaced. There's a lot of work to do there, and what that looks like with the upcoming construction season.
Yeah. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I'll defer to Jeff to answer this, the difference between the schedule for a trench versus the full rehab. I don't know if you have an idea what that would be in terms of a timeline, Jeff.
Yeah, I haven't scheduled it yet. To be honest, I would expect it to just take the entire summer. I'll have to sit down and kind of break it apart, which I haven't done yet. But I just, at a gut level, I know that we'll kind of want to get as much construction season as we can.
Thank you. Any other further questions or comments? Councillor Moore.
Through the mayor to Mr. Kitlitz, what would be the lifespan of these projects?
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, maybe I'll ask for some help from Jeff with the new pipe and materials that we're using. What's the average lifespan of that infrastructure?
It kind of depends on a couple factors, but I think 70 years is a common number kind of put on PVC pipe. Sometimes it's less depending on the conditions, but it can easily be more. Plastic pipe just is known to last a long time. The other nice thing is upgrading it from the water line specifically is currently asbestos cement, which is it's quite brittle and so a lot more subject to breakages. The plastic pipe that we'd be putting in is it's just going to last a lot longer. I think there's times that kind of infrastructure can last up to 100 years, but a lot of times they put it, I think, at 50, kind of just for being on a replacement schedule. There's just quite a few factors it depends on, but I guess the other side of it is this is kind of the material with the highest longevity. But the number that I've heard is like 70 is kind of maybe a good benchmark.
Thank you very much for that. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Thank you for the presentation, and council, take a motion. Go ahead, Councillor Chachka.
I move that council authorize the deferral of sanitary A6 project for consideration within the 2026 capital budget and redirect the 3.4 million allocated for the joint sanitary B1 A6 project to the sanitary B1 project.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? I'd just like to thank you guys for doing the work on assessing that infrastructure in that area. 6 point some odd dollars, millions of dollars is a lot of money for this work. But we were going to be spending 2.9 million anyway, and now we're going to have a completely refurbished area that hopefully won't have to be touched for 70 years. So the unfortunate part is that over the course of the last several years, we've been hit with a number of these areas. 18th Avenue was a perfect example of that, where unexpected issues have led to us to spend millions of dollars, and here we are again. So when we approve things like this, and I think it's important for the public to realize, it really stretches our financial capabilities, and that's why things like First Avenue don't get addressed, and some of the other areas in our community don't get addressed, because we uncover these issues. But without question, the flooding concerns in this neighborhood need to be addressed. They were ignored for many, many years, as far as I'm concerned, and we are tackling these issues, and we are spending millions upon millions of dollars upgrading these lines. So I think it's well worth the investment, but there's going to become a time where we're not going to be able to afford to do this kind of work anymore. So we do need the other levels of government to provide more funding for infrastructure. We have a huge infrastructure deficit in this country, and it's only getting worse. You just look to our neighbors in Calgary and some of the other mishaps that we've had. So we really need our higher levels of government to support municipalities in getting this critical infrastructure replaced. So with that, I will call the question. Oh, Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the mayor to council and to the gallery and anyone listening. And Mayor Zahara summed up a lot of the comments I was going to say. This project is extremely important to our community. Mr. Mayor Zahara mentioned about the flooding issues we've had, and of course the flooding issues in that area. And many residents have taken it upon themselves to get sump pumps and backflow valves and things like that, with the understanding that we're going to make improvements to our underground infrastructure as well. This is a huge cost, but it is a necessary cost. It means a lot to our residents that we're addressing some of these major infrastructure deficits that we currently have. So and I even look ahead to that A6 project next year, and I do hope that we're able to stay on budget with that and the future projects as well. And I know it's tough when we begin to open these things up and we find things that we weren't expecting, and there may be some budgetary considerations we have to make with that in the future, is that we build that in, that we're going to find, well, all sorts of things. So I think the past 3 projects, we found something that's altered the cost and the direction of the project. So supportive of both motions that are going to be presented here. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Schnard?
Through the mayor to Mr. Kitlitz. Mayor sparked something, that grant you talked about we could possibly get. Which level of government, is that, provincial or federal?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is a provincial grant from Alberta Environment and Parks, I believe.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for that. There was as Councillor Taylor was speaking there was a question I did have. Because we are doing the 8th Avenue project, is there a potential that we might be able to piggyback both projects and maybe find some synergies and cost savings, do we expect, if because we're going to be doing a full rehab on that street as well at this time?
It's a really good question, Mr. Mayor. I think the problem might be is just timing. The tender for the 8th Ave project is going out very soon. WSP is working on that, and they were just finalizing some amendments that we'd suggested, and it's going to go out any day. So I think that one's already going to be out. I guess there's potential that the same contractor could be awarded both, but I think that's probably a long shot. So
The other thing that I might add on,
yeah.
when we tendered the 2 projects last year, we included kind of an additional sheet to see if there would be any cost savings for doing just one versus doing both. And the contractors, there wasn't a whole lot. So I don't know if that might be kind of a kind of support the argument for not combining them here, because they're just, they didn't put down much cost savings in that scenario.
Okay, that's good information to know. Thank you very much for that. If there's no further questions, comments, or concerns, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. And can I get a motion, please, that council authorize a transfer of $2.5 million from the revenue no. Yes. Oh, right. I thought we were all done with the presentations, no? Okay. Okay. Councillor Taylor, you have something?
No, I was just going to make the second motion, if that was okay.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
The council authorized a transfer of $2.5 million from revenue sharing agreement reserve to sanitary B1 project.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to aerial fire truck capital project. We will welcome up Ms. Bradley Milton, our fire chief, and our deputy chief this evening. Joey Turpin, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We appreciate this time.
We're good.
Tonight, we'd like to bring to you the presentation regarding the aerial fire truck capital project. What we're bringing to you today is for council's approval of $2,750,000 for the purchase of an aerial fire truck from the 2025 capital budget. What we're looking at is we have done significant research, spoken with a number of dealerships and aerial providers regarding these trucks and the timelines that it takes to get them. And we're looking at a typical delivery time of 16 to 24 months or more. We have seen some providers saying that we would be looking up towards of 48 months for the provision of a truck. Currently, we have the opportunity to secure a stock unit currently that is in production and anticipated for delivery and completion within the fourth quarter of 2025. Time is of the essence on these vehicles. Right now, it is an aerial buyer's market. So these trucks have obviously they go onto the dealers' lists and they sell very quickly within North America. Currently, the truck that we're looking at, short delivery timelines are a major piece for us. Rosenbauer currently, with the truck that they have, is offering delivery within 7 to 10 months. Ensuring that this truck is in operation sooner. We also, by securing this vehicle now, will allow us to avoid the risk of cost inflation, particularly in the fluctuation of exchange rates, and overall increase of cost over time. These trucks, generally, when you sign for a custom truck, there can be caveats, or there are caveats for the fluctuation of not only the change in U.S. money and Canadian dollars, but as well as normal inflation rates as well. Operational urgency, obviously, we're seeking to replace the current Engine 604 at this time as a frontline apparatus, and we'll be turning that vehicle into a reserve backup status to have this vehicle, the new aerial, in place as a frontline vehicle. Budget opportunity, it does currently align with our budget and funding plans to secure this, if we can secure this without delays. I will turn it over to DC Trippin for the recommendations on regards to the manufacturing.
Thank you, Council. And thank you for having me here. I believe it's the first time I've had some FaceTime with all of you here, so I'm very excited to be here in front of you. So we did a lot of research on this. There are many builders and many dealers of builders located across Canada into the United States. Most local to us is commercial apparatus, commercial trucks out of Edmonton and Rocky Mountain Phoenix out of Red Deer. They also were two of the most competitive price-wise. Now, we're leaning towards Rosenbauer through Rocky Mountain Phoenix for a few reasons. One is lead time. So the Pierce trucks on a custom order is 48 plus months, which is the longest in the market right now. And the price was also a little bit higher on an average spec truck than what we would get from Rosenbauer. So other benefits by purchasing Rosenbauer through Rocky Mountain Phoenix. So obviously, this specific unit we're looking at has a much shorter lead time. We kind of lucked into this a little bit by happenstance. So we were having a meeting with Rosenbauer, reviewing some possible specs, having a meeting with Rocky Mountain Phoenix, reviewing some possible specs on a Rosenbauer apparatus. When they discovered this stock unit had been released and made available that same day. And their recommendation was to, if we have the opportunity to take it. So again, that's why we're here today. And again, the rest of our fleet, the majority of our fleet is Rosenbauer apparatus. So our Engine 605, our newest frontline engine, is a Rosenbauer truck. Our Unit 610 that goes on medical calls was built by Rosenbauer. Our Engine 604 was built by Rosenbauer. Our tanker is number 608 is a Pierce build, so that would be a commercial brand or a commercial sold truck. And then our heavy rescue is an SVI, but SVI does not manufacture aerial apparatus with pumps anyways. So understanding that most of our fleet is Rosenbauer, we use Rocky Mountain Phoenix to service, procure equipment for our trucks. It makes the most sense to continue with them because they know our fleet. Competitively, of course, they service our trucks annually. So that would be pump tests, ground ladder testing, general checks of a lot of the operational equipment and standard DOT type equipment like lighting and seat belts and all the standard operational aspects of it. One of the other big things with the Rosenbauer trucks, with the ladder trucks, is they're the only hot dip galvanized aerial apparatus on the market, and they have a 25-year structural warranty on the outriggers, the frame, and the ladder. The industry standard is 20 years by most manufacturers. Understanding the size of capital purchase this is for the town, it's likely this will be a 25-year truck for the town. I have no doubt that some 20-year warranty trucks would survive 25, but having that 25 is a bit of positive reassurance for us that it's going to last that desired lifespan. Again, getting on top of a truck right now and making this order and making this purchase and having it by end of year will be beneficial. One of the other aspects that was mentioned in the previous slide is that this is a replacement of filling the frontline role of our engine 604, which is approaching its 20-year life, and it is of course showing its age by approaching that. So should we extend that by 4 years, the investment to keep that truck roadworthy would be probably quite extensive. Pass the rest on to you.
Thank you, Joey. Sorry, just back to this. This picture is a picture of the current cabin chassis that is has completed production and is waiting to go into the body and aerial lines as well. Currently, as we've already touched on the fleet consistency, the majority of our fleet is Rosenbauer at this time. And again, this brings us in line with simplicity of service and parts procurement for our fleet. Additionally, enhanced operational efficiency. This vehicle will meet and exceed the NFPA and ISO's fire protection standards, as well as it improves our response times, having an in-house aerial unit available. So the recommendation is that Rosenbauer aerial platforms on a Commander custom chassis, we're able to get it for a fast delivery, value for our pricing and for what we're getting. And this does align with our operational and community safety goals. So moving forward, part of our procurement process is through Canoe Procurement Group membership. The town of Edson is a part of the Canoe program, and it is a large public sector buying group here in Canada. And we're able to purchase various goods through pre-negotiated network of suppliers, so they have already pre-established pricing. The advantages of our Canoe membership, it lets us ensure that the town is able to acquire the best purchase for the best price, and by pooling kind of our membership needs, right? It pre-qualifies vendors to meet the standards of the procurement regulations and trade agreements. For our procurement policy and compliance, the purchases over $75,000 require a formal competitive bidding process. However, with the use of Canoe, this allows us to meet that with the pre-negotiated buying groups contracts. The town of Edson has initiated and has issued notice of intent on APC, or the Alberta Purchasing Connect, that advises potential suppliers of our intent to use and utilize Canoe for some of our operations. With this purchase aligning with our purchasing policy, it meets both the policy and the practical needs for timely acquisition for us. Funding sources, I will at this time hand it over to Denise McDonald, our CFO, acting CFO, for further information.
Thank you, Chief. Before you are the funding source alternatives. I'm going to give you this in a little more detail that's on the power slide or PowerPoint. Funding alternatives for the aerial fire truck. During October 19th budget workshop, the aerial fire truck was introduced with the total budgeted costs of $2,750,000, and we proposed to fund that through a 10-year debenture. At the current rates, this funding method would result in an annual principal and interest payment of $351,478 beginning in the 2026 budget year. And a 20-year debenture would be $223,363. To reduce the borrowing requirements, Council passed a motion to allocate $1.5 million from the Energy Reserve. And then on November 13th, council further directed administration to explore and present alternative funding options for consideration. So these are our funding option considerations administration is proposing to you. So option 1, fund part of the project using the energy reserve and cover the remaining balance through a short-term debenture. The current interest rates with this approach would result in an annual principal and interest payment of $282,556, representing an estimated 2.1% increase in the 2026 tax mill rate. A debenture bylaw would need to be prepared and presented to council for 3 readings. Loans to local authorities are processed quarterly with semi-annual payments, and administration would target borrowing in the second or third quarter to align with delivery timelines, with payments commencing in 6 months after the draw, which would impact therefore the principal and interest would impact the following year's budget in 2026. Option 2. Option 2 is a combination of revenue sharing reserve and funds from the 2024 annual surplus pending year-end close. Surplus funds would be allocated to the Protective Services Capital Reserve during the year-end process to facilitate this approach. Strong performance in the 24 investment income supports allocating a portion of the surplus to this capital purchase. Revenue sharing reserve must maintain a 3-year rolling average of annual revenue sharing payments, and administration is confident that the reserve balance can meet the requirements while supporting the 2025 budget commitments. However, since tonight the sanitary line was brought forward, the reserve likely cannot handle both capital projects. Therefore, option 2 might not be a viable option anymore if we're funding, after council passing a motion to fund the sanitary line 3.4 out of this reserve. It might be too tight. However, there might be further surplus. We could investigate that option a little bit further as year-end progresses. Option 3, combine the funds from the revenue sharing reserve and the energy sharing reserve with a 2% increase in this year, the 25 mill rate. This option would allow the purchase with existing reserves, but would introduce additional implications on the current year mill rate. So some of the things council may want to consider is intergenerational equity. So with option 1, utilizing reserves is past taxpayers. Using a debenture is allocating payments to future taxpayers, and so there's some intergenerational equity, the past, the current, and the future. Option 2 would allocate money from our past and our 24, so past and fairly current. And option 3 would be allocating money from our past to fund a service that would be utilized in the future. That being said, I pass it back to Mayor and Council for any questions.
All right, thank you. A lot to digest there. Thank you, everyone, for your information this evening. With that, we will open the floor to questions. Councillor Chenard.
Through the chair to our CFO. On your option, can we put that up again? I was a little confused on option 3. We were taking the 1.2, so it was totaling 2.4 million, but then there was payments to 206. Yeah, right on that bottom one, 2%. How much money are we borrowing? Because I did the rough math. We're at 2.4 million, and then increase of 2%, 267,000. I was confused on that part because we were only short a few.
Can I clarify which document you're looking at?
The one that's on the screen, option 3. So it says like the first reserve 1.4.
So Councillor Chenard, option 3, we would not be borrowing money. It would be just a part of our operational budget for next year.
Right, but I was just looking at the 2% is what I was confused on. 2%
Right.
mill rate increase, and that's where I was confused on what that was all about.
Yeah,
We're
so
not borrowing money.
We're not borrowing money in option 3.
Okay.
correct,
We're not,
Ms.
okay,
McDonald?
so let me, thank you for the question through the mayor to Councillor Chenard. The 2% tax mill rate increase would be to increase expenses in the operating budget to contribute to this capital project. So our bottom line would increase by a 2% mill rate. So we're
Okay.
not borrowing, but we're increasing an expense item in order to support the purchase of this capital item from operations.
Okay, thank you. I just want clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chenard and Ms. McDonald. Councillor Pisichny.
Yeah, through the mayor to acting CFO, Ms. McDonald. Is there not an option two, with you saying there being some, maybe not having the funds there, and I regret to say use the energy reserve, but could we not make up the difference? So use the surplus, use the RSA reserve, and then any difference that is short, could we not use some of the energy reserve for that?
I'll see if I can share my screen. Is this big enough for you to see, or do I need to increase it?
We can't see it yet.
Oh, share.
There we go.
Oh, wrong one.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's the correct one. Okay.
All right. Can everybody see that okay? Councillor Taylor probably can't see it. He can? Okay.
No, yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay.
So by making it bigger, I lose the header. So this first column is 23. The ones that I'm looking at is the energy reserve and the revenue sharing reserve. So this first column D is our audited financial statement balance for 2023. This is our contributions to reserves for 2024, and this one's contribution from reserves with an expected balance for the end of 2024. Then column H is our contribution to reserves for 2025 in the budget 25 budget, and column I is our budgeted contributions from the reserves, and then expected balance for 2025. So you'll see that revenue sharing agreement has an expected balance of 4.4 for the end of 24. We are required to have a rolling 3-year average in that reserve, and that calculates to about 4.9 for the end of 24. So we're fine to not have to put more money in that reserve for 2024, but because we're already allocating a considerable amount of money from reserves for 25 projects, plus now the additional 3.4 million for the sanitary line, that moves this balance to 1.4, just under a million, just over a million, sorry. Therefore, it's probably not a viable option to take additional funds out of there and maintain that 3-year rolling average. Plus, we've budgeted for conservative money in the operating budget for that revenue sharing agreement. And that calculation, it likely will be higher. Generally, the county's assessment goes up with linear assessment. So we expect that probably be higher. The rolling average will be higher, more like 5 million. So we'll have to make that up by the end of 2025. So I think that's probably not really an option on the table anymore after we've allocated more money to it. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Mr. Kitlitz, you want to supplement?
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I just wanted clarification. Ms. McDonald, you said that we added 3.4 to the revenue sharing tonight. I think we've asked for an extra 2.5 million.
Oh,
is all the ask
sorry.
was. So I just wanted to clarify that because that I think, yeah, just to make sure.
Yes, I apologize.
Okay, thanks.
The total was 3.4. A portion of that was from grant. The remainder 2.4 was from revenue sharing. But still, if I reduce this by 2 million, 2.4 million, at least 2 million in there, and we'll have to recover that by the end of the year for 2025 to close to 5 million.
All right, thank you, Ms. McDonald, Councillor Pisichny, and then Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor to acting CFO, Ms. McDonald. Is there also maybe option one then, I'm brainstorming here out loud, but option one, again, that 24 surplus, if we could use that so we don't have to debenture as much, is that possible in option one? And then the next question is going to be through to our fire chiefs is, it's a 5-year term, so it's short term, so it can't be petitioned. But also, how long do we have to make a decision so we have the opportunity to secure that truck?
Go ahead, Chief Milton, if you want to turn on your microphone.
Thank you, through the mayor to Councillor Pisichny and all of council. So we have currently submitted a letter of intent to Rosenbauer for that truck. So that does temporarily put that truck on hold for us. However, depending on how things go and the council's decision could obviously affect that.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald, did you have anything you wanted to add? No, okay. Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, through the mayor to administration and probably council as well. I guess, is there not necessarily a fourth option? The fourth option is really going back to the original proposal made by administration at budget to have that 10-year debenture. And I wonder if maybe we were right, or administration was right in recommending that the first time. Looking at some of these options and pulling money out of reserves, the more the reserves get depleted, obviously raises concerns. Ms. McDonald, brought up pretty clearly that debenturing something puts it on the future of our residents. You move to Edson 5 years from now, you're still paying for this aerial truck that's going to be in use in town. And I wonder if that's an option. I know we have to rescind Councillor Byers' resolution number 2. If we do rescind that resolution, do we then need to put forth the next motion to do a 10-year debenture, or does it automatically revert back to what it was proposed originally within the budget?
All right, who would like to answer that question? CO Beveridge.
Mr. Mayor, oh, sorry. Did I just start? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the question. Ultimately, we would recommend, of course, rescinding that original motion of Resolution 2-2024, with the recommendation of making a clear motion as far as how to fund this, just giving that alternate motion of coming back with funding sources. I think it's important just for clarity and for transparency.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions, comments? Seeing that, I'm going to just jump in here. So, all these things are very important to our community. And so, I've thought about this a lot. We had a lot of discussion during budget time about pulling money out of the energy reserve. I've had sober second thoughts about that. I don't like that option. I don't like borrowing, but this, something that was said, I think is really important, is this is going to serve our community for the next 20 years. And so if we are looking at the residents who are going to benefit from this, it's going to be those residents over the next 20 years. And so debenturing it, make sure it's equitable for those that are actually going to be utilizing that service and benefiting from that protection in the community. Depleting our reserves, say if we take more money out of revenue sharing or energy, that means we have less money to deal with emergent projects like the flooding issues in our community. And we have to be conscious of that. I also have a little bit of a concern that with our policy on the revenue sharing reserve, because we always have to have $5 million in there, then that money is not there accessible to us for projects. So I think maybe some of our language in that policy needs to change. Obviously, that would be direction from council at the appropriate time. I think our goal is to have that rolling average in that reserve, but there are times, like what we see here today with the previous discussion on the sanitary project, is, you know, maybe we have to deplete those reserves from time to time to do those emergent things, not to completely drain our bank accounts, but things do pop up, and council needs that flexibility. For myself, I think that for the consideration that we've had on this issue, I think, and looking at some of the things that we need to do in this community, and A6 will be one of them next year. I think I'm probably a lot more comfortable today about doing a 10-year debenture on this, and making sure that future councils have the flexibility to deal with any emergent issues, and to have that buffer within our budget. Really, it's up to council on which way you want to proceed. You know, we were already, taking $2.5 million out of revenue sharing that we weren't anticipating tonight for a really important project in our communities. So I think those are all things we have to consider, and I don't want to lose this opportunity. Being in an industry that deals with vehicles, I know that the cost of this thing is not going to go down anytime. And if anything, it's going to escalate quite substantially. And we've already seen that on these purchases. And we are replacing engine 604, which Fire Chief Milton, how long has it been in service in our community for?
We have reached the 20-year mark. Sorry, thank you. Through the mayor to all of council, we have reached the 20-year mark on it. It is a 2006. Sorry, so we are hitting that 20-year mark here very, very quickly. So
okay, thank you very much, Councillor Chenard.
Through the mayor to the mayor, I'm agreeing with the two of it. So option 4, the debenture. Now I'm going to cross over to Mr. Milton, the chief. Is there some way we can put a deposit on it so we keep it, but yet if we're borrowing the money, because, if we go back and come to the option, I hear what we're saying, we could lose this vehicle. So I'm thinking if we can put a hold on it and the debenture makes sense, a 20-year vehicle over 10 years, I have to agree with that 100%, but I don't want to lose the deal neither.
thank you. Through the mayor to all of council. The way the procurement process works for something like the aerial truck is that once the agreement is signed in full, it is generally 10% of the project up front. Then once the cab and chassis is complete, you'll pay for cab and chassis. Then once the ladder arrives in the line to be installed on the truck, you'll pay for the ladder and then the remainder on delivery of the truck. The other option that you have obviously is paying something like this up front very quickly, secures that risk of fluctuation of the dollar. However, looking at this in within a year, I mean, you have to kind of weigh to what you're looking at this current point in time with this vehicle. It would be the 10% up front and then the cab and chassis because the cab and chassis is complete. So.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
Through the mayor to the mayor, if the discussion is complete, I'd be willing to make a motion regarding a 10-year debenture. If administration doesn't mind perhaps drafting that so I don't have to improv my way through a spontaneous motion on that, that would be helpful. I know we have to make a motion to rescind the Councillor Chachka's motion from earlier first. So when that's complete, I'll be happy to make that motion.
All right, so Council, do you have any further questions before we get into the motions here? Go ahead, Councillor Chachka.
Thanks. Through the mayor to administration. So what Mayor Zahara or Councillor Taylor, I'm not sure who said it, but going back to that original motion was, I think, something I was interested in the budget meeting, but because of the process of that meeting or some of the rules are that we couldn't do that. So I am still in favor of going back to that original method, but I do have a question about that 10-year debenture and just what that process or timeline looks like. As Chief Milton said, that there would be some financial coordination that would have to happen up front if we want to secure that, and I think that that's something that we sound like we're maybe in agreement? And how do we proceed, possibly doing it that way, the 10-year debenture, and also making sure that we have that, the funds provided upfront that are necessary?
Ms. McDonald, do you want to take that question?
My understanding is we can secure, thank you for the question through the chair. My understanding is we can secure the truck with a deposit moving forward. Once it's approved with the funding strategy, we will secure a deposit with them so that we can move forward. Does that answer your question? As for debenture, we would be required to, on a longer term debenture, we will have to create a debenture bylaw and advertise it for 2 consecutive weeks in the local paper after first reading, wait 10 days and bring it back for second and third reading, and then bring it forward after 30 days before we would be able to do any borrowing. But the intention would be to borrow later in the year. So there's an opportunity for it to be petitioned down in the community, because we have to advertise it in the local paper for a longer term debenture. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, Ms. McDonald. All right, any further discussion? Councillor Pisici, you're good? Okay, so can I get a motion, please, that council rescind resolution number 2, 2024, passed on October 19th, 2024? Councillor Chenard, would you like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion. I don't have the wording, but I'll make the motion as you said.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is carried. And Councillor Taylor, would you like to make this supplementary motion? And I think Ms. Veerboom is going to get it on the screen there for us.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I will.
I get this going. Did it pop up for you?
Yes, it did. Thank you. The council directed administration to fund the fire truck capital project through a 10-year term debenture.
Aerial fire truck, correct?
Oh, aerial fire truck. Thank you.
All right. Council, any further questions? CFO, go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
I just thank you for the opportunity to clarify. If council is proceeding with the option for a 10-year debenture, well, it was, I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the dollar amounts that will impact the tax rate for.
Sorry, Denise, you won't be able to because I have my screen share on with the
Okay,
motion.
so I'll just speak to it. So a 10-year debenture will hit the tax rate in 2026. That payment will be a 2.6% increase on the tax rate going forward. If we go forward with a 20-year debenture, it will be a 1.67% increase over the 20 years. It would be much more tolerable to do a 20-year debenture on this truck going forward. So I just wanted to make sure that you were clear on the facts that it's 10%, 10 years would be a 2.6% increase. A 20-year is a 1.67% increase.
Okay, thank you for that information. Just a question to you, Ms. McDonald. Do you know what the interest rate difference is between those two? Is it significant?
Yes, this is the current rates. We're hoping the rates will come down by the time we actually do the borrowing. But at the current rates, a 10-year is at 4.92% and a 20-year is sitting at 5.23%.
The benefits of borrowing as a municipality, much cheaper interest rates than most average citizens can get right now for some of these things. So, so there's some food for thought, council. Right now, the motion that we have is for a 10-year debenture, which would impact the tax rate in 2026 by 2.6%. If council wishes to proceed with that, then that's fine. If you wish not to proceed with that and go with a 20-year debenture, then we'll have to defeat the motion that's on the floor right now. So council, any further questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Councillor Chachka.
Thanks, through the chair to council. I am supportive of a debenture for sure, as I mentioned. I am hesitant when we look at the differences between that 10-year and 20-year and the 2.6% tax increase next year over 1.6. This is, if it was only going to be a 2.6, I think that is very reasonable, but we do, as we learn that inflation hits us, municipalities, as it does everybody else, and you know, to assume that is to look at that in a vacuum is maybe not so great. I think that I would be more in favor of extending that out to a 20-year and making that a little bit more tolerable for all of our residents, and you know, in the spirit of intergenerational equity, it would actually span that over the life of the engine in this circumstance. So those are my thoughts with this.
Thank you. Councillor Chenard.
To Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Chacha, I have to agree with you 100%. That was exactly my thoughts, because there's more that comes up that we have to do. So I would agree with you on that same comment.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Pisichny.
Yeah, through the mayor to council, I would have to agree. I just made the 10-year as that was the recommendation back at our budget meeting, but certainly we can, if we have to defeat this motion, we'll make the second one at 20 years.
Thank you. Councillor Pisichny.
Yeah, thank you, through the mayor to council. I think to remember too is you pay a considerable amount more interest over 20 years. So a lot more interest. You're paying a higher interest rate, and it's a considerably longer term. So just think about how much more interest you're putting onto the taxpayer at that time as well. So maybe we tighten our belts somewhere else so that it still is a reasonable increase. I personally think it should only be a 10-year, but I have the right to be wrong, I guess. I am by myself.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other further comments or questions on this before I call the question? CFO McDonald, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, if you wanted to, those percentages are for the full debenture. If we wanted to reduce the debenture draw by supplementing it from reserves, then it reduces, then you can go with more of a 10-year, but it might be a good idea to estimate it at a 20-year, and then we have flexibility. As long as the bylaw is written with it being at a maximum of 20, we can always draw 10 if it seems more reasonable to do so, or that there's other options that come forward that we can utilize at a later date. We do need a motion on the books to fund it, but maybe there's some other opportunities to be a little more flexible after year end is closed.
I think that's an excellent point, Ms. McDonald. Go ahead, Councillor Pisichny.
Yeah, thank you through the mayor to Ms. McDonald. So if I understand correctly, we approve up to a 20-year debenture on this project, and as we move forward and we get closer to funding it in its entirety, we could use reserves and pick a lower term.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's a lot more palatable. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further questions, comments? I really like that option, Ms. McDonald, because we'll have a better idea of where our year-end transfers are, and then where we're sitting as a more holistic approach, and then council can make that decision at that time. So if we do defeat this motion, the supplementary motion would be for a maximum of up to 20 years. And then that'll give administration the flexibility. So with that, the motion on the floor is currently for the 10-year debenture. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion is defeated unanimously. And Ms. Veerboom. Ms. Veerboom will put up the next motion for us. And Counselor Chouinard, go ahead.
Okay, I move that council direct administration to fund an aerial fire truck capital project through a maximum of 20-year term debenture.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns on this? I have another option. I'm just kidding. I think we should get a surf fire truck. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. That was easy. Don't want to even think about it. All right, with that, we will go to council committee reports. We're going to go back to January the 15th, and I'm going to ask you guys to queue up tonight. So who wants to go first? Go ahead, Councillor Pasichny.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor Pasichny. Councillor Chachka.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor Chachka. Councillor Chouinard.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor Chouinard. Councillor Moore.
And I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Taylor.
I have a report. January 15th, I had a lab report meeting where we passed some policies and we continue. There's work continually done on the deficiencies from the renovations that is sort of ongoing. And on the 16th and on the 20th, I had some short homelessness task force meetings for just some check-in information. So that is my report.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and I have nothing to report. With that, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.